Hey, so I'm sitting here from the back deck at our newest cottage on my family cross Canada trip to the Rocky Mountains in British Columbia, which has been an amazing experience. It's been so awesome. Uh, the mountains you see here are the Kootenay Rockies, and right below us is Lake Kootenay. No, yes, Kootenay Lake. There we go. We've seen so many things, I'm actually starting to forget all the different sites we've seen. But I wanted to get on camera and actually shoot a video for my blog just because this whole experience has been very eye opening. It's been life changing, really, to be able to do something like this. The trip that we're taking right now will probably end up being around 6 weeks by the time from the day we left our house, by the time we get back. And driving all the way across the country and back and seeing all these things I've wanted to see for my whole life basically has been awesome. And I remember it was probably just over 5 years ago where I hired my first business coach or success coach, whatever you want to call it. And one of the exercises she had me do was to write down a 100 goals list of things that I would do if money was not an issue. If you just wanted to live life and do your thing, what would you do? And one of the first things I wrote on the list was to do this exact trip. And I said something to the effect of, take my wife and kids across Canada to see the country when they're older. And here we are 5 years later, actually doing this thing that I've always wanted to do. And what's so cool about this experience for me, anyway, is that this definitely wouldn't have happened this summer, wouldn't have happened right now if I hadn't made a decision back just before Christmas in 2011. I was reading, I can't even remember what book it was, but it was a business book that reminded me of the concept of anything you want to do in life. Uh, the decision precedes the action. So you need to make a decision. You need to come to grips in your mind and in your life what you want to do. You're going to decide you're going to make that thing happen, and then everything else will fall into place. Versus the other way that a lot of people, and myself included, we look at a lot of goals or things that we want to do, and we wait for the right time. We wait for the right circumstances, or if then I'll do it. If all these things line up perfectly, then I can get this business going, or then I can take this action, or take this trip, or whatever. And it never or rarely ever works out that way. Almost anything you want to do, you have to make the decision that I'm going to create this thing. This thing's going to happen. I may not know all the steps, but I have a vision for something I want to do. I want to create. I'm going to decide right now that this thing's going to become a reality, and then I'm going to get to work on figuring out how to put the pieces in place to make it happen. And that's exactly how this trip happened for me. Once we started thinking about it, and I talked to my wife, and she was on board. We just booked it. We said in July we're going. We're going to do this thing, and all the things that are sort of question marks right now, we've got the next 6 months to figure them out. And a lot of those things had to do with my business, getting my business systemized to a point where I could actually take a significant amount of time off and still feel comfortable with that, as well as some other factors, family factors and financial factors as well. You got to get all those things in place because doing something like this obviously isn't something you just pick up and do overnight, although you probably could if you really wanted to and figure it out. For us, that's not what we wanted to do, especially with two young kids. So we had some time to plan it. Bottom line is, making that firm decision 6 months ago and locking it in, everything else did fall into place. And it wasn't all easy, but it forced me to make some huge decisions that actually benefited me and my business greatly. For example, hiring my project manager, Diane, who's been, I've got ants crawling on me here, who's been awesome in helping me organize my business. I may not have taken that step. I might have just stuck with the VA setup that I had and kept working inside of my business a little bit too much and not working on my business as we're all supposed to if we really want to grow a company and make it sustain our lifestyle and things that we want to do. And so going on this trip forced me to do that and to hire Diane and to start working with her. But it also forced me to look at everything in a different way. It forced me to let go of the micromanaging that I didn't even realize I was doing, and to delegate better and to start thinking at a higher level. And that's just one little aspect of my business that has changed. It's changed a whole lot of other things as well. My point is that there's probably a lot of things that you want to do right now. There's something that you want to do that maybe you've been waiting for the right set of circumstances to show themselves or to line up before you acted, or before you took that jump. And I'm here to tell you right now that it's never the right time. So the right time is when you've made a concrete decision in your mind that whatever you're visioning or whatever you're planning, that you're going to make it happen, and I'm going to get to work on figuring out how to make this thing happen. Whenever that happens, your mind goes to a new level. You start taking bigger and better actions. that's how I started my business. I decided that I was sick and tired of just reading books about entrepreneurship. It was time to do this thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to run motivational seminars, so I booked a hall. I paid for the hall, and then I figured out how am I going to fill the room, what am I going to speak about, who am I going to invite. All these other things happened after I booked that first seminar room. That first seminar turned into a second one, turned into a third one, and 5 years later, I'm running a company that was only in my mind. So I know for me, these things work all the time. I talk to plenty of other people, same thing happens. We make the decisions based on what we feel, what's in our heart, what we want to do, and then we go to work figuring out how to make it happen. So I encourage you to do the same thing. If you're scared about a decision, make that decision, make it committed, and then get to work on figuring it out. Ask for help, get other people's input on how you're going to make it happen, but lock it in. Say, this is an inevitability, I'm going to make this happen, and watch what happens. I think you can be pretty excited with your results.